Staying with legal matters, defense advocate Peter Daubermann continued his cross-examination of Vuyiseka Nontlazi, the 12th witness in the trial of televangelist Timothy Omotoso. This was in the High Court in Gqeberha. Daubermann brought up six charges 6, 7 and 8 against accused number 2, Lusanda Sulani, which pertained to sexual assault and rape. When the witnesses were asked about this, she maintained that accused number 2 never sexually assaulted her, only accused number 1, Omotoso. Daubermann also pressed Nontlazi on the reasons why she never told anyone about her alleged assault. Our reporter Leraro Fekisi has more on that story.
Afternoon, we're still here at the Gqeberha High Court where Peter Daubermann, the defense lawyer, has come down really hard on witness 12, Vuyiseka Nontlazi, on what he says are inconsistencies in her statement. He first asked her that she obviously stayed in the house for about 5 years and she would come to Port Elizabeth where her stepmom and her mom are currently residing, and he asked her during the time when she would come to PE1, why didn't she at all disclose what was happening in the house for 5 years where she alleges she was being sexually assaulted by Omotoso? Why didn't she disclose such hurtful information to her stepmom and her mom? Because she obviously was around them and could talk about this. And Vuyiseka went to state that she feared for her life, that Omotoso was a powerful man whom she thought if she ever went against him, whether that went against him in terms of turning back his advances or went against him in terms of speaking out about what he was doing to her, as she alleges, she would die, because she went to state that in church she would often see him making statements such as, if you ever go against me, if you ever go against what I say, I will curse you and you will die. And she also said that during some of her interactions with him, he would constantly say to the young girls that if you ever left my life, your life would be cut short. So she said that, number one, he was a loved man, so she feared telling her parents or her mom and her stepmom about what's happening, because they would never believe her, because they loved him, they revered him, they respected him, and she thought that it was better to keep such things to herself. Then Peter Daubermann went to the issue of the statement. Vuyiseka stated that the first time she disclosed what was happening in Durban was to a Captain Brenda, who she met in Cape Town, whom she gave a detailed overview of what was happening of her life in Durban, their alleged sexual assaults, and then later on she then said the same statement to Advocate Ntelwa. But what Peter Daubermann really harped her on, or really came down hard on her on, was to state that in her statement or in her disclosure to court last week, she spoke about being forced to perform oral sex on Pastor Omotoso, something that Peter Daubermann said was actually not in her specific statement. So he went on to ask, why would she disclose in court that Omotoso allegedly forced her to perform oral sex, whereas it was not actually in her statement, both to the police lady in Cape Town and also to Advocate Ntelwa, who has recused himself for this case. She went to state that in both of her statements to both of them, the only thing she stated was that whatever happened in Durban, and what that she meant, whether it's sex or oral sex, happened also in Bloemfontein. She thought that was just enough information for them to understand that throughout the whole time there was sexual violation happening to her. Then, as we went towards the end of proceedings just before lunch, he went to 3 charges 7, 8 and 9, which speak into rape, which speak to sexual assault. But what was very ironical about these charges, as Peter Daubermann stated, is that all these 3 charges were directed to Lusanda Sulani, who we are aware is accused number 2. So he said that in charge number 9, in a statement that was written down or confessed by Vuyiseka, she stated that accused number 2, Lusanda Sulani, raped her, sexually violated her, and also obviously assaulted her sexually, something that Vuyiseka obviously said that is incorrect. But all those charges are not against Lusanda Sulani, but actually against Omotoso. Then he went further to show in 2 other charges that he had put down against Sulani that these charges were in fact incorrect. So Peter Daubermann went to state that, so it's correct to state that all the charges that you have put down in your statement, which you made to the police and also to Advocate Ntelwa concerning Lusanda Sulani, are in fact incorrect. And Vuyiseka agreed to this. They ended off the proceeding by stating that, so Peter Daubermann said that, so can you agree with me then that all the charges that you currently have written down concerning accused number 2, Lusanda Sulani, are actually incorrect? And Vuyiseka agrees, saying that all those charges are not against Lusanda Sulani, but against Vuyiseka. And she ended off by saying the only thing that is a charge against Lusanda Sulani was that during the time she was in the house, Lusanda Sulani, accused number 2, was in the house, but she would occasionally meet her. She stated about twice where she'd meet her in the passage, and Lusanda would say, "Vuyiseka, Papa is calling you," and that's all she pretty much did concerning this case. So Peter Daubermann said that, can you agree that it is incorrect to state that she had a full hand in the alleged sexual assaults now that you are alleging concerning Omotoso? And she agreed that the only thing that Lusanda did concerning this case was to call her occasionally 2 times and say, "Papa is calling you." And then Vuyiseka herself went to Omotoso's room, perhaps knowing what was going to happen at that time, because she did say that she knew that if she was called to the room was going to happen, but again she went because she went there out of fear. And that's where we are, and we'll continue later on after lunch with Vuyiseka Nontlazi, continue her testimony here at the Gqeberha High Court.